And President Trump is not holding back on criticisms of Ukraine's president. He is calling Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. That was yesterday, and is accusing him of mismanaging U.S. aid. Talking to reporters, President Trump also complained about Ukraine not paying the U.S. back for the military assistance it has provided. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us from the White House and has more on this. Ed, critics say President Trump's rhetoric echoes Kremlin talking points, and President Zelensky among those critics. Why is that?
That's right. Zelensky saying that President Trump appears to be living in a misinformation space, and Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, saying that the president is, in essence, echoing Kremlin talking points. Look, for a variety of reasons, he believes that, or at least now believes publicly, that it was Ukraine that started a war that facts clearly show was started by Russian President Putin and the Russian military, who invaded with no apparent justification. And that opinion, or that belief, public belief, comes as the U.S. and Russia have launched talks to essentially restore relations. You saw this week the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, meet with top Russian officials in Saudi Arabia for what initially was thought to be just a conversation about the war in Ukraine, but became a much broader one about restoring U.S.-Russia relations at the president's request. And we'll see if that ultimately results in the president meeting with President Putin, somebody he has said before he admires, much to the consternation of fellow Republicans and certainly Democrats in this country and much of the rest of the world. But it signals that he continues to try to warm up to Putin in hopes of restoring relationship between the two countries.
I want to share with our viewers something the president posted, Ed. It's a message that reads in part, quote, "Long live the king." And this is after he ended New York's congestion pricing. Of course, the founders of the U.S. famously left my homeland of England precisely because they don't want to live under a king. So what is the thinking here?
Well, it's a good question, Errol. It continues to suggest that he is someone who's trying to demonstrate to his supporters, at least, that he's getting things done. And in this case, regarding congestion pricing, stopping the state of New York and the city of New York from charging a $9 toll on people who travel into the lower reaches of Manhattan, where you are, and further south of you. This week, stepping in to stop it, saying it's a misguided and expensive toll. But in essence, doing something that maybe many people didn't realize he could do by stepping in and stopping a governor and a mayor from executing on a strategy, although mostly a state strategy in this case, and he's long seen the governor of New York as a foe. It's just kind of ironic, really, that he is posting something like that hours after suggesting that Zelensky is a dictator, when in fact he was elected with a landslide victory in 2019 and hasn't held elections in Ukraine in the last several years because its constitution allows for martial law during a war, which also allows them to suspend elections. So that's exactly what they're doing, is they're following the law of their country, which right now at least allows them to not hold elections. The reason Trump is suggesting there should be is because there's a belief among pro-Russian believers, entities, and certainly Russia itself, that were an election to be held, perhaps a more pro-Russian candidate would win. And so that's just adding to the sort of concern about what the president is up to. But in this case, ironic that he's suggesting he's a king when he's falsely suggesting the other guy's a dictator.
Yeah, really important context there. And I want to ask you about President Trump endorsing the budget proposal by House Republicans, preferring it over the Senate's two-bill plan. Help us understand that.
Well, look, ultimately what Republicans are trying to do is put into legislation the president's budgetary, border security, immigration, and tax priorities. And they can do this by using a legislative gimmick called reconciliation, not to be confused with the thing Catholics can do. This is a move that allows the majority party basically to pass one big piece of legislation as long as it's mostly or all aligned with budgetary priorities, so spending. And the theory right now is the House believes they should do it in two bills that then will eventually get merged. The Senate says let's just do it in one big bill. The president's supporting what House Republicans are doing, in part because it is likely to yield a more conservative blueprint for what Republicans should do writ large. And so the thought is, try to pass something as conservative as possible right now. Yeah, it'll go to the Senate and it might get watered down a little bit, but maybe not as much as it would be if the Senate went first. It's all procedural, but it's also a sign that they are struggling, even at the beginning of this process, to figure out how the process should play out, before they even get down to what exactly will ultimately be in the bill. And if they fail to get all Republicans on board, they've got to go to Democrats to get a budget passed, and then most of these priorities are going to get washed away. Exactly what the White House doesn't want.
All right, Ed O'Keefe with all the latest headlines for us. Thanks so much.